5683.
Personal Service Center. Thanks, Larry.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this beautiful Tuesday morning. There was a commercial. I don't remember what. I'm sure it was for some kind of a medication, but there was a commercial. I don't know if it's still running or not. But basically, it's this group of people, like a large, and it was an audio commercial, so it was a radio commercial, and you heard this large group of people saying, "I'll be with you through thick and thin. I'll be with you through everything," and then it goes through. But if you're having this condition, you're going to have fewer people. And if you have this condition, fewer people. When you're ready to move, I'll be there for you. And there's like 3 or 4 people who say, I'll be there for you if you're ready to move, right? Which we know that experience. But then it gets you to the last level, which is suffering from depression. And there's like maybe one person who says, I'll be there for you. And it's like nobody's there for you. And it's hard to understand why people won't gather around and support somebody who's going through what is considered an illness when it's a mental illness or when it's depression. But we all will gather around somebody who's had a heart attack or cancer or something like that. I don't understand it either. And of course, it came to mind quickly last week when we heard that Robin Williams had committed suicide. And you know, it's interesting when you look at the covers of the magazines at the grocery store. Now they're all capitalizing on the fact that he is a story.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean that to sound cold, but that's probably the truth. Not that it's a bad thing to cover the story, but it's just that when you look at his face in the photographs that they've chosen, you see sadness. And it's almost like, have you ever had somebody who passed and they were ill and you just didn't really see the illness, and then later on you're looking back at the old photographs and you're saying, oh my gosh, this was like a week before he died. Gosh, he looked so bad.
Yeah.
I didn't think he looked bad at the time. You know, maybe sometimes we're too close to people. Melody Moezzi is on the phone. She's a beautiful lady, by the way. It says here she's an Iranian-American Muslim activist. Boy, that takes you down a path. You wonder what we're going to talk about, doesn't it?
Yes.
She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She is an attorney. She's a UN global expert. She contributes to the biggies like CNN, NPR, BBC, the Washington Post, the Christian Science Monitor, and we're honored to have her on our show. I could go on, but I wanted to make sure we have time for her. She's written a book. It's called Haldol and Hyacinths, and I have a feeling this book was way in the works long before Robin Williams' story, obviously, but it is her story. It's her story, and it sounds like the Hyacinths were at the time of her life when she had an illness that everybody was there for, and the Haldol, which is a chemical, she's going to explain what that is, for mental illness, and nobody was around during those days, or maybe very few people. Melody, I can't believe nobody would be around you as beautiful as you are. We love to be around beautiful women. So, Melody Moezzi, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Pretty good. And where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. And did I say your name right?
Yeah, Moezzi.
Okay, because I got it. Robin sent me like an audio clip of yourself telling me how to pronounce your name, so I listened to it over and over and over and over. Moezzi, 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 Moezzi. Okay.
They used to call me Noisy Moezzi in high school.
Oh, really? Were you noisy?
Yeah, I was loud. They used to call me Cacophony, too. That was mean, I think.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. But how is your health right now?
I'm blessed. I'm doing well. I think it's a constant struggle, I think, for a lot of people living with mental illness, and I am no different. I'm surprised sometimes people introduce me as somebody who is recovered and past all of that, and that makes me really nervous because I'm not so much recovered as I am constantly recovering from this and dealing with it. There are benefits and huge disadvantages to living with bipolar disorder, for sure. It's just not black or white. I mean, I guess the disorder itself speaks to that.
Can I tell you something that's going to reveal my naivety, I think, on this?
Sure.
I'm going to ask you a question, and maybe that will reveal it. Would love make a difference? I know that sounds so corny and dopey, and it even coming out of me, I hear it that way. But I always thought that somebody who has a really depressed person in their life simply needs somebody else to be around them and say, come on, let's go fishing. Come on, let's do something, and show love. But I think I've learned that I'm wrong about that.
I don't think you are. I think love always makes a difference. I don't think love is always enough. It may be necessary, but not sufficient. So there are other things that I think you need. And for me, love was a huge part of it. I'm very into Sufi poetry, and I write about it in the book. And my dad is his own little Sufi poet of his own. So I'm all about love.
Does he know you're saying that about him? Men don't like that. you did say the word sissy, right? No, men don't. No,
I didn't say sissy. I didn't. It must have come out. No, he's amazing. But I mean, I think that's a huge part. And my husband was a huge part of me getting through this. But I also needed medication. I needed treatment. And I think that's something people are afraid to seek help when they're at a point where they can be seeking it. You talk about people not being there for you. I mean, it's hard. I can understand why people wouldn't be there, because I don't want to be there for me, right? Like, I don't want to hang out with myself when I'm depressed. I don't know why anyone else would. And I think the fact that there were people who still hung out and said, no, I'm not going anywhere, made a really big difference in my life.
That says a lot about those people.
What is most striking about your book is that you'd rather be a survivor than a victim.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's sort of the only option. And for me, humor has helped a lot. It's been a big sort of survival mechanism for me. And a lot of people talk about in the book that, I mean, there's a lot of humor in it, and it's kind of dark sometimes, but that's the way my mind works. And at the same time, even with bipolar, and I think with any sort of illness that affects your brain, having a brain that works differently can cause a lot of problems that maybe other people won't have. For sure, other people won't have. But having a brain that works differently also means that you can solve problems that other people can't. And I wouldn't want to give that part of it up. And there are parts of this condition that have helped me on many occasions. And of course, it's almost killed me as well. So it's kind of a hard thing to deal with.
And there's a strange observation that I don't know that you'll agree with, but it's mine. And it is that sometimes the most talented people who give to us the most, Robin Williams being an example, throughout history, you can look at the biography of artists and musicians, and whether they're contemporary or they lived hundreds of years ago, they've all seemed to be part of this, and yet gave us so much.
Yeah, I hate to sort of romanticize that, but it is true that there is some level of creativity that goes with, and there have been people like Kay Jamison who have studied creativity in people with bipolar and other mental illnesses. So there's definitely some sort of connection there. But I will say that when I went into the hospital, I had sort of romanticized that to myself before the first time that I was hospitalized. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be surrounded by geniuses. Turns out no.
Okay.
I assure you there are plenty of regular people living with that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. So the ones that we know about is why it becomes romanticized. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, that's even scarier. So the average person who is suffering from severe depression, like we're talking about, is completely alone. It's almost like, and we learned this the hard way too, that all autistic people are not savants.
Right, exactly. Okay. Exactly. I would love that. I would love if that were the case. But I still think, like I said, about your mind working differently. It's something pretty amazing to be able to see. There's part of the illness with manic episodes. I have these flights of ideas where they can go really fast, and I have all these great ideas in my mind that don't turn out to be so great to other people, mainly because I'm not coherent at that point, and I'm unable to connect the ideas. And you realize how important it is to connect ideas together in order for the world to understand them. So that's a big part of it. And people talk about people in mania being just very productive and all of that, and high functioning. And yeah, I think with mild mania that's possible, but with acute mania, which I've experienced, it's not. I was having hallucinations and delusions, and to a certain extent there were some valid insights, but they were so fleeting. I couldn't catch them,
Really. Melody, we have to take a little break. I apologize for that, but we'll be back with you, and I wanted to explore more about the book itself. Haldol and Hyacinths is the wonderfully titled book, by the way, that Melody has written. And just, if I may comment, obviously if you're an attorney and a poet, you must use both sides of your brain, which is not always that common, I don't think. Anyway, Haldol and Hyacinths. We'll be right back with Melody Moezzi after these words.
Gene Powell pasture mowing. Our tractor services include bush hog, disking, front end loader, box blade, and stump grinding. We also have zero-turn mowers for the smaller paddocks, aisleways, fence rows, and lawn care. Fence row spraying is also available for weed control. We are licensed and insured. Gene Powell pasture mowing, 352-629-2440, or online at powellgene, Gene, at yahoo.com. Gene Powell pasture mowing.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Sunshine mixing with clouds today and hot with a thunderstorm in the area this afternoon and evening. The high today 92 to 96. And mainly clear and warm tonight of 73 to 77. Tomorrow, intervals of clouds and sun. There can be a thunderstorm in places, mainly near the coast, though, the high 92 to 96. And on Thursday, sunshine mixing with clouds. Watch out for a shower or thunderstorm, high 92 to 96. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Leadership, experience, and proven results matter.
Re-elect Angie Boynton to the Marion County School Board District 4. I have put forth solutions to raise funds for our schools through other avenues. I advocate for the use of juvenile civil citations in lieu of arrest for first-time offenders of some student code of conduct policies. I support the positive alternative to out-of-school suspension. Teachers have the union, but students, parents, and the community need a voice. I will be that voice for you. Remember, vote Angie Boynton for the Marion County School Board District 4.
Paid political advertisement by the Angie Boynton campaign.
Hi, I'm Yvette, and I'm here to tell you a few things about ABC Frederick's Appliance. They sell not only new, but used guaranteed appliances. When you call ABC Frederick's Appliance, they will provide service on what they sell and any appliances that you own. ABC Frederick's Appliance is located in Bellevue, right over the railroad tracks. Call 352-629-5181. That's 352-629-5181. That's 352-629-5181. ABC Frederick's Appliance.
All right, thank you. 17 minutes after 11 o'clock. Let's return now to Melody Moezzi. She's on the phone. She has written a book called Haldol and Hyacinths, A Bipolar Life. It is her memoir. It's very personal things in the book, and I wondered how hard that was actually to do that. Melody, thank you for waiting through the break with us. Was it painful to relive some of the things that you wrote about in the book?
Yeah, it wasn't easy to write, and I'm as narcissistic, I guess, as the next person. The idea of memoir never really appealed to me, though.
No, really?
It seems really self-focused, right? But the idea behind writing it for me was that it was my way of sharing a story that I thought would help fight stigma, both against people living with mental illness in general, but also in minority communities where it can be even higher.
You know, you talk about, in much of the book, I'm guessing many of your readers will relate to you. There was a part of the book where I could relate to the guy Matt, because I could, that Matt is your husband. I could imagine being the guy who sees the pretty girl and just wants to get to know you, and then you're panicking, thinking I'm going to hurt you in some way. That would be me. I'd be the one that the women think, oh gosh, this guy's too big, he's going to hurt me. Right?
Yeah.
But isn't that? But in a way that's a cool story, and yet relatable. I think on both sides, both your side and his side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I met him my first year in college. So I met him very early on. In my first year in college, I was pretty much convinced that pretty much half of all men, especially, and he's a young white male at the time, and still, I was going to ask, were largely rapists. So I had this horrible. I'd been prepared really well, and that was my fear. And he sort of approached me in a really weird way. He chased me down, and I thought it was creepy.
Yeah, it was.
And he sort of.
That's why I could relate to it.
Yeah, it was creepy. I was known as my stalker for a long time until I was like, no, I'm actually dating him. My friends were like, are you sure you want to be dating that guy?
Oh no.
Well, that's that's another good point about your book is the levity you have in there. You take it, in different directions, especially how to cut your wrists, which way is more, better, and things like that. It's just amazing to me that you could actually do that and in the process help others.
Yeah, well, my mom is a pathologist, so I think that was it. She took me to brain cuttings when I was a kid. I don't think that's a normal thing that you
No, that's nasty.
I went to autopsies. I learned a lot about the human body early on, and it never really grossed me out.
I bet you did. What kind of work do you do as an attorney?
I don't do it. I call myself a recovering attorney. I'm not practicing anymore. I write full time now.
Oh, okay.
But I use my legal education in my writing. I'm an activist, so I use it a lot in the things that I write.
So when you heard the Robin Williams story, what were your thoughts?
You know, and I wrote an article for HuffPost about this.
Yeah, I was reading it.
Yeah, in his life, he didn't admit outright that he was struggling with mental illness, and it was something that people really assumed because his personality was so manic, sort of, and he was very manic on stage. So people labeled him as bipolar in his life, and I assumed he was actually. And I write about this in the book, that at one point when I was being taken away in 5-point restraints in a stretcher, there was a crisis counselor, and my poor husband is standing outside of the ambulance looking at me, and this crisis counselor is talking to my husband, being like, "Don't worry, she'll be okay. Robin Williams has bipolar." And that was her way of, and that was her way of calming him down. And I get it. I get the urge to sort of, it makes you feel better that there are these incredibly smart people and successful people who may be living with your illness, but I don't think we should push that on people in their lives, and I wish that he weren't labeled like that, because one, he was just so much more than that, and I think he contributed so much to our understanding of depression and suicide through his work as an artist, much more than I think he could have as a celebrity spokesperson. But people were still sort of pushing him to do that, and I wish that hadn't happened. Maybe he would have felt more comfortable seeking help, if he weren't in that position. It's a strange position to be in. I chose when I wanted to come out publicly and speak about having bipolar. I don't think he had that choice.
Mm-hmm. But when somebody was an alcoholic or is a recovering, because they always say they really it's almost like, okay, well, that was you and this is you. But what you're saying is there is never a was and is, it's an always is, right?
Yeah. I think it's a progression, and a lot of people with bipolar, and again, I'm not going to assume that's what he had or didn't have. It was clear that he was dealing with severe depression, but a lot of people with bipolar in particular self-medicate. It's incredibly common, and I was lucky that I didn't fall down that road, but it happens a lot, and it sort of makes sense why somebody, if you don't understand what's happening to you and you're having these incredible highs and these very deep lows, that you would try to fix it with medication. And if you don't have access to help in the form of a psychiatrist or a psychologist, then you might go do something on your own.
Were there any events in your book that you had to, interview family members about that you did not quite remember, but you felt it was important to put it in there?
Yeah, there was a lot. With depression, psychosis, and mania, it really does a number on your memory. So I had to interview my family and ask them the kinds of things that have happened. Like, my husband was telling me that I was crossing streets without looking both ways because I thought I was a prophet. And it sort of makes sense. If you're a prophet, you don't need to look both ways, right?
Right. Exactly.
Who needs to do that?
Yeah.
But some of the things that I did, I wasn't aware of. Like, I disrobed in a crisis center, and I do remember that somewhat. I wish I didn't. There were some things I remember, and I wish I didn't remember them. But I did some things that were just beyond out of character when I was manic, and trying to fly, and I thought I could, and thank God, because we lived on the 20th floor of a.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I believed I could fly, and I was going to try it. Thankfully, my husband called the police before that happened.
Oh, he really is by your side. He is your true soulmate. For sure.
Yeah, when I got out of the hospital, I told him outright. I said, "You didn't sign up for this, and you can leave." We just celebrated our 12th anniversary wedding.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
Are you a mom? Are you a mom?
No, I don't have children. I don't like screaming things.
Well, don't get a guinea pig, because that's a screaming thing.
I don't have one of those either.
The book is called Haldol and Hyacinths. How long has the book been out?
It just came out in paperback last month, but it's been out for a year before that.
Okay. Well, that's good. I wanted to know that, actually. So, do you have enough feedback from people who are relating to it? And I guess part two to that question is, do you think relating to it will actually be a comfort to a lot of people?
Yeah, I've gotten amazing emails from people who do, and particularly in different minority communities who just, it's not something we talk about, whether it's in the Iranian community or the African American community, the Hispanic community. A lot of different groups in particular sort of veer away from discussing it more than others. And also it's been used historically, mental illness has been used historically to further marginalize different minority groups, whether it's in North Carolina where I live, where we had eugenics boards that actually sterilized thousands of African Americans for being feeble-minded up until the 70s, So there's some distrust of the medical community that exists. So I've gotten great feedback from people who say that they can just relate and that they see themselves in it, and that it's helped them. And that, to me, is better than any award that I could feasibly win for it.
It seems that you're also a psychologist as well because of what you've gone through. Have you been back to any of the Iranian communities in the East to try to help others or to try to help them recognize they have problems?
Yeah, I've spoken, and I'm going to Canada. I'm speaking in Toronto, I think in September or October, exactly to my own community. And I'm speaking actually in a couple weeks at the NAMI National Convention, the National Alliance on Mental Illness in D.C. They have their national convention, and I'm very excited to be speaking from the perspective of a Muslim on a faith panel. So that's kind of exciting. So it's something that they're not inviting people to talk about in the past, and now I'm excited to be able to do that for my particular communities. But in general, I just think it's something that affects everybody. 1 in 4 people have a diagnosable mental illness in a given year, and 50% of Americans will have a diagnosable mental illness in their lifetime. So it's not a tiny minority of people. It's just a really quiet group, and because of that, our rights are overlooked, and we don't get the kind of funding and respect that we deserve.
That is interesting, yeah. So you feel like as being part of a minority group actually makes it worse for you. That I guess Robin Williams was, I don't know, he was a majority, but being famous is a minority. It's a different type of a minority, I guess.
Well, I think being a genius is a minority. I think he was just such an incredible genius, and that must have been so lonely. I mean, just imagine being the smartest, quickest-witted one in the room all the time, and never having someone to. And I imagine that's what it must have been like for him.
But that's how his genius manifested itself. That's not to say he's more of a genius than you are. And I know you're laughing at that, but I think it's true. I mean, genius manifests itself in different ways. In his case, it was that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you're a genius. I mean, look at what you've been able to do with your life.
Exactly.
I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, of course it is. That's and I think I think it's just a God-given thing, and and you use it. I guess the best way you see fit. I don't know. That's how he saw it fit. I mean, you're changing lives too, just in a different way, just with a different approach. And by the way, you're not funny. You're funny too.
Yes.
I mean, I love the fact that you hate heterosexual men when they're trying to watch you pee.
Yeah.
Right? I know. I was in the hospital, and there were these.
Yeah, I can relate to this.
Yeah.
I for some reason, when I was manic, I suddenly was like, I can't stand heterosexual men.
Yeah. No, I get it, because we're pigs. Hey, let me tell you something, Melody. I went to a strip club in my life before. And I've seen the faces of men, and I've seen the faces of men, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't want that to be me." And I went to a casino with Robin, and I looked at her face while she was looking at slot machines, and I said, "Robin, I've seen that face. It's on men in strip clubs. You've got that same look."
And it was true. Couldn't get enough of that. Let me tell you.
So slot machines and naked women. It just has a different effect on the different sexes. Melody, you're fun. Thank you for being on the show with us today.
Oh, you're fun too. Thanks for having me.
Let me give away the copy you sent us. It's called Haldol and Hyacinths. If you call me right now, I'll leave your name on it. It'll be waiting for you here at the station. And but I keep wanting to rub the name the bracelet.
The hospital
I keep thinking
bracelet.
it comes off. Yeah,
Yeah.
where your name is. And thank you for giving us the information on how to pronounce your name. How do we buy the book? Do you have a website? I know you have a website.
Yeah, it's available wherever books are sold, but I encourage you, so you can get it on Amazon, but Amazon isn't going to invite me to speak at your town, so why don't you go to your local bookstore, and your local independent bookstore,
Yes.
and support them, because they're a dying breed, and I would like to support them.
And you also say that if a person does feel suicidal, to always call the suicide hotline. That way there's always someone right there to talk to.
Exactly, and that number is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TALK.
Melody, thank you for being on the air with us today.
Thank you for having me, Larry.
And for the listeners, if you go to our website, you'll see Melody's website on our guest list, and that way you won't have to worry about how to spell her name. It's melodymoezzi.com. Again, thank you, Melody. All right, we'll be right back.
Who would you feed if you had 50 chicken sandwiches from Chick-fil-A? WOCA and Chick-fil-A in the Paddock Mall have teamed up to reward one organization with 50 chicken sandwiches as a way of saying thanks for the great work that organization is doing in our community. And we need your help. See, there are so many great people doing great things that we need nominations. You can nominate your own organization or any organization you choose. Simply send an email